The benefit that I got working for and with Tony was proximity to multimillionaires, billionaires, and working with them on projects or whatever. And the biggest thing I took away was,
welcome to the Your Message Received podcast. And now, taking your message to the finish line, your host, John Duffin.
Hey folks, John Duffin here with Duffin Media. Welcome back to another episode of Your Message Received. Your Message Received is the home, the place, the platform to help you find your best, most true, authentic business voice. It's a lot, right? Or maybe we just shorten that up to your best, most true voice. Get what you want, find what you need, improve your results, meet the person of your dreams, make billions of dollars. That's why we have our guest here today. He's guaranteed those last two. If I might not have heard that right, but in the meantime, I got somebody good, and I'm very excited about that. Folks, welcome to Marc Von Musser, who joins me from a beautiful sense of a killer coaching program. I welcome Marc and I acknowledge Marc, who happens to be the CEO of Soar and War. How's this for a title? The world's most sought-after authority in heart-driven sales and human optimization. And here's my self-serving plug. We are all about authenticity here. We are all about heart-driven. We are all about connection. And we talk about optimizing communication. So this, to me, felt like a perfect fit. Marc, welcome to the show, man. It's great to have you.
thank you for having me. I'm very excited about chatting with you as well. And I have to, before we start though, John, did you used to be a DJ? You have got the voice. You have a voice that's a professional voice, very similar, reminds me of Marshall Silver, and just smooth.
That's a reference.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a reference. Folks, I've done a little bit. My DNA has been primarily sales, but as things have evolved, I've done more creative and voice work. So anyway, thank you for that, man. I really appreciate it. It's great to have you here.
Oh, I'm excited. I love talking about the transition and the transformation of where sales is going. And there's so many people, there's so much disinformation and wrong strategies in play. When we can do a small bit, the one thing I would tell everybody listening is what I'm going to talk about today, and what I know you talk about too, is two things. Number one is authenticity. They did a study of frequency, and frequency is going to be a key component. Authenticity was actually the highest frequency that the people in the science study could find. It was higher even than love and gratitude. And these are very high frequencies. But authenticity was a person's true essence in alignment towards something, you know, like a cheetah running on the savannah at full tilt. And so there's nothing more pure than that. So that's the first part. The second part is that I want to chat with you about what actually works versus theory. There's a lot of theory out there, and I wasted easily a decade listening to theory where people said, "Oh, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this," and then the more I studied it, I realized they were copying John Doe, and John Doe was copying Sal, you know, and John Doe, and they were copying and copies. And so what happened is there was a series of mimicking, and people were not being honest about how they made their money, and they were not honest about their stats. So all of a sudden, as a young salesperson, I was sitting there thinking, what's wrong with me? This guy's closing everybody. He wasn't, but he said he was, and I assumed he was telling the truth. And then I realized that this person never really did it. He was copying someone else's sales stats, et cetera. And so part of that is that if sales is going to return to the top of the pillar of income and impact, which it should, most of the CEOs grew up through sales. We have to get back to authenticity and actually serving the human being.
Okay, so I love that. So first off, I want to follow up right off the bat. When you choose the word authenticity and you defined it, and I get that. My first question is, you used a word I love, which is frequency. And I want to lean into that a little bit. When your background, you were talking to me earlier off camera, so to speak, in regards to you're at your beginning from much humbler beginnings and vantage points. The question is right off the bat, when was the first time you realized you felt frequency?
It's a great question. And frequency flow, part of it, I would say probably when I started selling at the very beginning. I was about 9 or 10 years old, and I would say the word and the frequency was gratitude stacked by with opportunity. I was about 9, 10 years old, and I was able to get a paper route. And the way the paper routes worked back in the 70s was that you had to go door to door and you would sell the person the paper, the subscription, and then you'd get to deliver, notice my language, get to deliver it at 5 a.m. as a 10-year-old. But I was focused on what an opportunity it was. I was focused that I could make $50, $60 a month, which was a lot of money to a 10-year-old, but you had to go out there. But that was a big part. But I remember the flow about going door to door. And instead of like, oh my God, what if they say no? Because a lot of them said no. I was so excited just for the opportunity. And I was so grateful. My dad was an amazing human being. He was an alcoholic. He was somebody that we were evicted 14 times in 14 years, but he was a multimillionaire, and then we'd get evicted. And then we'd be a multimillionaire, then we get evicted. So I started to have to be very resilient in myself at a very young age. And I remember, though, for 365 days a year, I had to ride my bicycle in pitch dark, get up at 4:30 in the morning, wrap my own papers, put in the inserts, put on that big bag, and then ride in the pitch dark, in the rain, in the fog. But I remember the time. I remember how grateful I was. And I did not understand at the time how important gratitude is as a frequency. And that changed it too, because I was not focusing on poor me and how hard it was and this isn't fair. I was focused on how lucky am I that I get to be able to deliver the paper, and I can go, if I want more money, I can go to knock on more doors.
Stay with me for a second on this, which is, why do you think you were grateful?
I was grateful because I know a lot of kids, there was only a handful of paper routes. There was only a handful of ways. When you're 9 and 10, there's not a lot of income opportunities.
Right.
And so back then, I didn't focus on having to be up at 4:30 in the morning as a 10-year-old. I didn't focus on, that I didn't have the best bike. I didn't focus on that I had the most hilly area in the whole community.
Most people don't. You know what I mean? Certainly not 10-year-old kids. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah. And so part of it, I think it was probably a combination of the hardship, knowing that even at a young age, knowing I loved my dad. He was an amazing human being, but he was a Peter Pan. He was not putting the family first. He was, his alcoholism, and knowing that, I started to realize I needed to take care of myself more and start being resilient. So I'd say that the challenge created that opportunity. And again, there was a really great story about two twins, and this person, one of the twins ended up in prison. One of the twins ended up as a multimillionaire. Wow. And when they did an interview with this person, they went and interviewed the millionaire, and they said, well, of course I became a millionaire. Did you not know my parents were alcoholics and I was abused and I had no other choice? My dad showed me what not to do. So it was very easy for me to become a millionaire. They interviewed the person in prison, and the brother in prison. The brother said, well, of course I'm in prison. My dad was an alcoholic. My dad was this. So same environment. But the question is, why did one use it as a springboard and one use it as an excuse? And that was something that I noticed for me was I didn't have a lot of the things everyone else did. And I realized that I could do something about it. And I would say having that opportunity, I think in my whole school, there was maybe 5 kids that had paper routes. So it was kind of a big deal. So I always lived in that gratitude for it.
I love that. I was a slacker. I didn't get my paper route until 12. Did you have the wire cut? Did you have the wire cutters and all too?
All the above. And the bags, with the rubber bands on rainy days, and then
got that right, man.
People down. What great training, though. Going door to door and having to collect money and doing that. I mean, it's such great training. I recommend it for everybody.
I remember collecting, and I remember that sense, like the joy when they actually paid you, and a couple of times when they
and a tip,
like I said, and a tip, and the holidays, and all that stuff. So I love that. So you had a foundation that I'm going to say you kept some of the takeaways, that it wasn't just something that happened when you were really young. And again, like I understand, like I said, from the Bible, you were selling everything, candy, car wash tickets, and obviously the subscription, and a lot of calls and a lot of sales presentations. Talk to me about, as you were becoming an adult, why it mattered to hold on to those skills Or more importantly, what got you, like I said, what got you to leverage it to get yourself out of a tough situation?
So it's a great, great question, John. And part of it, I would say, is that I also noticed that the kill ratio for salespeople was incredibly high.
Mhm.
For example, when I was in college, I started to realize that I could make more money in less time by willing to do what other people wouldn't do.
Mhm.
And I remember hot water blankets to wrap around your water. There was a huge energy incentive and low flow shower heads.
Yep.
And I could make, I don't remember what it was, let's say 1,000 a week there, but I was only going to make about $250 if I worked at a supermarket or something like that. So I saw that in less time, I could make more money if I was willing to do it. And again, the opportunity. And there were a lot of people that wanted the job. And you know what I mean? When I went to go interview for the job for selling door to door, I know at that point there was a lot of people and I had to talk my way into giving me the opportunity. And I remember that's what I said. I said, just give me a shot. I know there's a lot of people. And I said that. So I got it and I went out and sold all the hot water blankets and it made sense. You know, I was like, hey, you know, and then I started to think smarter. And then I started to go to realtors because I could sell 10, 20 blankets and 10, 20 shower heads because they were getting tax benefits and people that had rentals would buy all of them in one time. And this continued to a point where when I would go back, I had to wait and I was selling everybody's inventory because no one else was selling. And then I realized that the reason is because they would go for a couple of people and when they'd get a few no's, they were out of the game.
Right.
And I noticed when I was teaching sales on the phone, the average non-sales person there that doesn't have the thick skin or doesn't understand the concept, the average salesperson mentally quits between 3 and 10 no's. They might make 100 calls. They might stay for 2 weeks while they're looking for another job, but they're already out of the game. And the difference was there was a handful of differences. The frequency you bring to it, whether it's gratitude and you're excited, whether it's something that I looked at as a form of growth, or as well as what I focus on. I would always focus on the one yes. I didn't care if I had 10 no's. Everyone else that quit was focusing on the no's and no one's buying. No one has money. This is such a bad market. It's saturated. Why? They don't know me. I don't have a business card. And so that was one of the variables that I noticed was if I could control my focus and I could focus on winning the candy award, winning the, you know, making $80 in a month as a newspaper or selling 100 blankets and getting a $500 bonus, whatever it was, that pulled me forward. And again, underneath all of it was gratitude, because the minute you move away from gratitude and appreciation and you slip into entitlement or expectation, you're already out of the game. Your frequency will drop and you will not give away. You will not sell. You're done. So this is something that we worked with a lot of people. If I sniff entitlement or if I sniff expectation, the world doesn't owe you anything. You were here to add value to the world. You were here to make other people's lives great, which is part of the core of heart-driven selling.
So those words really resonate. Hey, look, we also talk about something else, and I'd love you to share the experience that you had as you were like forging into adulthood, as we'll say, and working as a waitstaff person. And I love this example of a story that you share with me in when you were in California or in San Clemente. Sorry.
Yeah, I was actually in the Valley. I grew up in San Clemente on the beach. And so I remember most of my summers were spent with no shoes, one bathing suit, no shirt. And the minute June 10th came, clothes came off, bathing suit went on, and my feet were leather within 2 to 3 weeks. Because you walked.
I know what you mean. I got we do. Well, I'm an East Coast guy, but I know the feeling. It's summer feet. But anyway, I got you. Yeah.
And then so when I decided to go up, now I got to give you the full context. I didn't give you the whole context. So here I am. I'm a massive 5'7" and 111 pounds. Nothing more sexy, more sexy than a man that's 5'7" and 111 pounds. You have to work really hard to be that small.
I'll say the optimal.
Then on top of that, when I was 27, I looked like I was about 14, 15 years old. Also a true story. I was getting carded to an 18 and over club. I was bringing in and taking a friend's daughter to a club. She was only like 19.
Right.
But we didn't drink. And so I tried to get her into a club. They let her in, but they looked at me and go, there's no way you're over 18. Those are fake IDs. Those are fake credit cards. I'm like, so that's how I started my real estate career. I first became an appraiser. I learned how to appraise property, but I realized I was making $900 when a lot of the people were making $5, $10, $20,000 for what they were doing. So I realized that, but I looked like a kid. And then to make it different as well, I didn't realize this. In San Clemente, pretty much most people were either Caucasian or Mexican or Latino, right? But predominantly Mexican. So I didn't realize we didn't have a lot of Jewish people. We had one black person in the school. I didn't have a lot of diversity. So I moved to the Valley, San Fernando Valley. It's 120 million degrees, crowded freeways. And so I decided I'm going to go work for the best real estate company there was. I still had to get hired. I looked like a kid. I didn't have any really good suits. I had the wrong car for it. So when I do that, I went to a recruiting seminar for Jerry Burns, who is the largest broker in the Valley.
Got it.
Amazing guy. And so I'm standing there, and there's tons of people that looked professional, if you know what I mean. They looked the part. I did not. I'm standing in the very back of the room, not sitting down, and there's this beautiful little lady. She became my Jewish grandmother, loved her to death. And she took me under her wing, and she said, "You remind me of somebody." And I was like, "Oh, who's that?" She goes, "One of my first people I hired and I trained, who's now the #1 sales trainer in the world. He had the best-selling books. He had How to Master the Art of Listing, How to Master the Art of Selling, How to Master Creating Wealth. He had all these books. He was going everywhere. He was the most in-demand sales trainer there was." And I was so excited because I had all 3 of his books. I hadn't bought his programs, but I bought his books. So I was in, and I was just do whatever she told me. So she told me to go spend $3,000 and buy all of his cassette tapes and the clamshells. Of course. So I found the money. I was making a whopping $1,200 a month as a waiter. Yeah, a month.
So we're approaching 2.5 months worth of income to buy the 3,000 or to invest. I'm sorry, to invest.
And I would still drive, but I listened to that stuff 24/7. And then what I did is I made my own flashcards. I went above and beyond. I made my own flashcards for everything he said because I was interpreting his gospel. And lo and behold, I went out and I started doing my FSBO, which are for sale by owner calls, calling the people who are telling you, I don't want to work with you. And I didn't realize, because again, going back to the basics, I was focusing on getting a listing, focusing on being the #1 realtor, giving a meaning of this. I just have to crack the code and staying in my frequency, but it was kind of breaking me down a bit. I mean, you can only do so many no's. And I mean, I think I was in it 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, not one listing.
You're
getting hammered.
Yeah.
I got one listing appointment, and the guy spun me around so fast I was in and out of the house before I could use any of my magic technique. And so then she said, "Well, hey, so-and-so's coming into town. Do you want to meet him?" And I go, "Oh my God, would I?" And I was so excited. And so we go there. There's about 1,500 agents. They're all there, huge energy, big crowd.
Right.
And afterwards, I was blessed enough to go backstage and get to meet the legend. And when I went to the legend, she goes up to him and he comes up and he goes, "Rose," and he's going up to give her a hug. And she starts doing the thing that, like if you ever back talk a grandmother, she starts doing that to him. She's waving her fingers saying, "Those aren't your numbers. That's not how you made your money. That's not," he goes, "I know, give me a hug." And he goes, "I know." He goes, "The marketing company did that." And my brain was fried because I thought what he said was the secret. And so I was doing it. It wasn't working for me. So I remember thinking, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And then when we got back in the car, I met him. I got a picture with him. I was that was really nice of her. But we're quiet in the car. And we're sitting there, and she, as only a wise woman could do, wise grandmother, beautiful lady, she said, "Well, are you going to ask me the question?" And I said, "Absolutely." I go, "Yes." I said, "Why did you have me buy his stuff and do it and memorize it and do it and go out and do that if you knew it didn't work?" She goes, she thought and she paused. And again, as the genius she was, she said, "Because you weren't even in the game. You had no skin in the game and you were not even in the game. Now we can get started." And that was when my professional sales career started.
Right.
So that's kind of how I did it. And
Marc,
after that, I went out and I invested another $38,000 on every seminar that came into town. I memorized it. I tested it. Only one of them worked at the end of 38,000. But once I cracked the code, I was able to go from making nothing to making $100,000 in less than 3 months. And I mean, it just went crazy but I paid the price and I figured out what the difference was.
So I want to ask you what the price was, and I don't mean dollar amount. So the cracking codes and no skin in the game, but what for those my audience, what do you define, or what did you define as having skin in the game? What does that mean?
I finally met somebody that was a mentor, and he showed me that they don't care about your company. They don't care about this. They care about what they care about. So I remember going from, I work with Jerry Burns, the number one realtor in the San Fernando Valley. Look at our ads, and we can guarantee, and we'll do this and we'll do that. And nobody cared. They cared about themselves. What's in it for me? The best radio station there is, WIIFM. And so once I started to figure that out, then I was able to articulate through messaging very powerfully about, hey, if you actually felt you could net an extra $5, $10, $20,000 by listing with me, would you do so? That's what they cared about. And they'd say, even if they said you look like you're 15, I said, I can appreciate that. But if you felt somebody that looks 15 would out hustle, outwork, and outperform and get you an extra $5, $10, $20,000, and I can prove it, could I have the listing? And it didn't matter what they said. It didn't matter what the objection was, because once I could understand, people want an outcome. They want a problem solved. And the better you can articulate that, it doesn't matter what color my car was. It didn't matter how young I looked. It didn't matter that I was a Gentile in a Jewish neighborhood. It didn't mean that I didn't have a college degree at that time. The only thing that matters was, could I solve their problem, and could I defend it and prove it? And once I did that, now my focus, my gratitude, my opportunity, all the different things that I've learned since became very powerful.
That's awesome. Why that matters to me so much is, I think some people, like you talked about, and I love when you talked about the not the low hanging fruit, the sense of the ability to come out of sales. There are so many individuals that come out so quickly, and you shared earlier about that part that people, like, maybe they're looking for another job, maybe they're there a couple of weeks. But why I say that is, and another reason, simply my opinion, is that people get concerned is that the key is often positioned as a dollar amount. And I think you just defined, that's why I asked it twice, that it wasn't a dollar amount.
No.
It is the ability to solve a problem. It doesn't mean investing in coaching is a problem. It simply means that it's, what are you spending money for? And that's often, to me, by the way, as I found out, and as I realized, Mark and I, folks, have a common realtor in terms of, I've got some Keller Williams chops, and Mark also does as well too. And it's one of these things where they invest a lot in training. And I watched a lot of people, maybe in one of them, not feeling compelled to need to stay, or what have you. So I love the fact that you were able to pinpoint that. I want to ask you, you've had the ability to be involved with, work for, lead in certain cases with some of the largest organizations. Keller Williams, you were there, 11 years? So, I mean, heck, that's impressive. Tony Robbins, like I said again, which I think only everybody knows, as the director of sales. It's, before you launched your company, what would you say would be a couple of the strongest takeaways that you received from those companies?
So there's a couple of things. The benefit that I got working for and with Tony was proximity to multimillionaires, billionaires, and working with them on projects or whatever. And the biggest thing I took away was realizing they're just like me and you. Until you meet billionaires and you're sitting there privately with them for hours and working on a project, it's very easy to overinflate their greatness. And I'm not saying that bad. I'm saying it because you have greatness within you too. I'm not saying they don't have it, but what happens is we diminish our greatness because I think, oh, he's probably way smarter. They weren't. He probably got luckier. He didn't. And so just knowing that, it cracked the code of that invisible glass ceiling that we put ourselves into as human beings, from high school, from our teachers, from not getting on varsity basketball, not making it into Harvard, whatever. So we put ourselves in this container about, and this is how most people in coaching pick their price. They look around to their friends, they look around and they're charging $100 an hour. So I'm doing 120. Well, that's not the outcome. That shouldn't be the focus. But what happens when I worked with Tony as I got there, and there's a couple things as well. There isn't a program Tony didn't have that I didn't buy, didn't memorize, and didn't know inside and out. And so when I was coming up and buying everything, that's where I invested all my money. You name it, W. Clement Stone, Napoleon Hill, Joseph Murphy, Neville Goddard, all of them. And I would buy them and study them, and Dennis Waitley and all these people, Bob Proctor, you name it. So I did a lot. And I didn't at the time recognize how critically important human optimization was and mindset in the sales process. 99.999% of sales trainers, they're teaching you a strategy. They're saying, okay, when they say this, you say this. When they do this, you do this. You need to make this many calls. And they've diminished the human connection. Now, there is some value there. If you have two people and one person is making 100 calls and one person's making one, I'm going to make a bet on the 100 normally. Yep. But if you understand the integration between being optimized as a human being and then having skills and sales skills, now you're going to jump up at ridiculous levels. So when I worked with Tony, I got to test all of this. I started as the director of coaching, actually. Okay. Our department was making about $2 million a year, which they had just let go. We had about 55 coaches. I came in, evaluated everything, cut the team down to about 30 coaches and rebuilt. And we went from doing about 2 million a year, took them all the way to about 30 million a year, right? And we rebuilt. We went from completing about 18% of the contracts to about 97% of the contracts, which meant we were doing it. Well, Tony paid attention, and Tony was like, hey, we've watched what you've done. Our referral sales, I did a referral test as an example. Before I started, we did $11,000 in product sales. After I did this, we got 2.1 million in product sales over the same 6-month period. Referral sales. We went from $17,000 in event referrals to 4.8 million in referral sales in 4 months in the same 6-month period. Tony paid notice. He asked if I would help our teams, the coaching departments that were there. One of them, which was selling the event was 35-year record for sales for a salesperson in a quarter, which was a sales cycle, was $300,000. And they were very happy. That was the guy, the big dog. I started teaching them the power of loving your client, serving your client, and getting to the truth. Quit selling the event and solve their problem. And I started showing how to do this. We had 3 people over $1 million, and everyone on the team was over 600,000. That's when Tony asked me to be his director of sales training as well. And so then I trained the other people for appointments, and I showed people. I worked with another department called the FSRs, and I only worked with one person. There were 6 people on the team. I worked with one. And I asked him, I said, he had this ridiculous pitch that everybody was using, right? They were pretending like Tony put his arm around me and he said, hey, Lee, you need to do this. And he's doing this whole thing. It was all bullshit.
Yeah, sure.
And I asked Lee, I said, Lee, when you're saying things that are not true, I said, what does that feel on your spirit and your heart? And he goes, I feel like a fraud. And I said, do you realize that when you're bringing that frequency in, they're feeling it too, and they can't put their finger on it, but they won't buy. And I said, tell me why you're working for Tony. And he lit up. He became the version of him that I knew. And he starts talking. He goes, oh, because I love this. I love watching people step into their power. And he da-da-da-da. And I helped him articulate. I said, that's your pitch. I said, that's how you inspire people. So we did. Now here's the end game. He starts going out. And I said, Lee, when you understand this, you're going to get 15, 20 tickets in a room of 10 people. He goes, you can't do that. We only need to get 10%. 10% of the room was a big meeting. I said, we don't play in that great. And so I showed him and I said, here's the truth, Lee. The alphas aren't in the room. The alphas are out making deals happen, but they have friends in the room. And if it's any good, they're going to tell them and they'll pay for the tickets. Mark my words. He comes back like he saw God. He goes, I just got 22 tickets and there was only 12 people in the room. Long story short, he sold more by 3 to 1 than the other 5 guys on the team combined. 3 to 1, the other 5. Because he started speaking a truth that was authentic. It was about his passion. They conveyed the passion and he inspired people to look within. And all of a sudden, this started to happen. And then I did this with the different departments that I coached.
So I want to make sure I heard the 3. I love the story. The 3 conditions or the mantra: know your clients, serve your clients, and show them the truth. Did I get the last one? Am I articulating? Great. So I find that to be such a powerful example of getting away from that sense of just simply say this.
Yes.
Here's your 20 pages on handling objections.
Correct.
And so I love this. When did you realize that it was important for you? When did you feel the frequency to step out on your own?
That's a great question. I had worked with a company teaching online sales and to coaches, consultants, speakers, authors about how to take their intellectual property, put it in an online package, and then build a 7-figure online, 8-figure online business. And we did over 5,000 people. I had the benefit of getting to test it with people that had no sales background, that had a sales background, and it made no difference. When people got in frequency of sounds like goody two-shoe stuff, but love and service, and really getting them associated to being an advocate for somebody, all of a sudden it elevates every part of their presentation. Now, I don't want to pretend that I don't need to have some type of structure.
Of course.
You have to have a structure. And so we would teach a structure, but all of a sudden people are making $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 a month. And that was very exciting. But the problem was I noticed that some people were abusing it. They were not necessarily doing it for the right reasons. And so if a person, now again, you lose, if you're not there of service, it's going to implode. You might get a handful of sales, but I started to notice it was time for me to go because I saw a shift in the way people were looking at serving clients, and they stopped serving clients. The new marketing teams came in and started making, that's nonsense. That's not closing. I'm a closer. This is how you close. Even though we were at 30 to 40% enrollment rate, and we had private individuals in 50 to 80% enrollment rate when they were selling for themselves, but even a sales team with a 30 to 40% enrollment rate, and the norm in the industry was 4 to 8%. And so, but the people came in, they had a different philosophy, and I realized I'm not going to go ahead and just help kind of the next Bernie Madoff abuse people and make money. I'm not going to go ahead and help the next Jordan Belfort teach them how to go ahead and screw people, because I believe that sales is a responsibility. If you're somebody's advocate, they are putting their faith in you, just like I did 40 years before with the Rose Lane. And there's a responsibility there. And again, ultimately, I don't even answer to you. I answer to God. And I know one day that there is something much bigger than me, and I'm going to be held accountable for what I did right and what I did wrong. And when people start to do that and show up as an advocate, it's in that place of authenticity and love that allows you to speak a truth, that allows you to say, hey, John, I'm not saying this to get a sale. If you don't work with me, that's fine. But please, please hear me. You are worth so much more than you're settling for right now. And you get to have those type of conversations that people really realize, but it's not about me getting a commission. It's about, hey, here's what's going on. Here's how we can help. But you have to decide, because I didn't want people to close. I wanted people to enroll them in their dream. I wanted them to be able to show people, if I close you, it's something I do to you. I use my power. Most of the closers are power and posture selling. I'm going to beat you down. And if you beat enough people down, eventually a few of the weaker ones will give you their credit card. They'll cancel, but they'll give you the card. I wanted to create win-win-win situations where the client won, you won, and the humanity won. And then you wake up to phone calls and thank yous and your emails like, thank you so much for helping me. And you feel better and you feel stronger on the next call. And a week from now, when somebody's trying to weasel out of their dream, you can speak truth to them and they'll say, shit, you're right, let's do it. And that was the transition to show people how to get 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% enrollment rate. And it was so much fun showing people, like this one lady, I won't say her name, but this one doctor of psychology, she was a therapist and a counselor, beautiful lady in her late 70s. And she was, I'm pretty animated. She was like this. She'd like, well, Mark, I love what I do now. And I'm getting a little bored. Everybody just buys. I haven't had an objection in months. And she goes, everybody just wants help. And I go, exactly. That's the whole point. But you don't have to be an alpha. You don't have to be a 6'5", good-looking guy to be enrolling. If you care about human beings, if you will actually do your homework and make your investments to know how to articulate and pull the truth out, I don't care how short you are. I don't care how old you are. I don't care what school you did or didn't go to. If you care, it is the ultimate tool that you can have. So
to me, I thought when you were describing that, I was thinking of the 5'7", 111-pound rock star that was ready to set the world on fire, just didn't know it yet.
Yeah.
What would because I feel like you've answered the question, but I really do want to know that, like, for people that are feeling lost in regards to
Sure.
your company, and that sense of human optimization, that sense of reaching somebody who has felt beaten down, what would you suggest now in the midst of everything that's going on? Hey, and folks, we're having this conversation in 2025 if you're listening at a later date. But for now, when they feel so beaten down by so many things, and I've talked to a number of people who have, how do you bring them back to life?
Great,
How do you actually connect?
great question.
Right?
So I had the blessing to personally coach over 5,000 people and show them how to make 6 and 7 and 8 figures and show people who have never sold. And 90% of my time, I was not teaching them a new closing strategy. I was reconnecting them to their greatness.
Thank God.
There's only one objection, ultimately. There's only one objection. Will it work for me? That's the only objection there is.
Stay there.
It has 3 faces. Partner, spouse. I need to think about it. Partner and spouse, and I can't afford it or it's too much. But there's all of those lead to the one truth. Will it work for me? For example, if you fully believed you could make $1 million with me, you would find a way to find the money to invest.
Right.
If you actually found that my coaching could help you take your relationship to the next passion level you've always wanted, you will find the money. It's the fact that you don't. And when I try and give you bells and whistles and I'm not speaking to the truth, all of a sudden people start coming up with more excuses than you can, because buyers have buyer defenses. They have been assaulted everywhere. You can't go anywhere without 100 things trying to get their hand in your wallet. So we have all these defenses up. And if you're not speaking truth and authenticity from a place of love and caring, they have more excuses than you have solutions.
They'll never have less. No. They'll never have less. And so my thought is that's why this part, I want to at least.
Let me answer your question, though, because you brought up a very powerful question. When I worked with 5,000 people in the last few years alone, just on this, it was always I start with the human being first. So the first thing that I would do is I would remind you and reconnect you that God doesn't make junk, and he certainly didn't start with you, John. You'd have to be a big narcissist to think you're the one person who's a piece of dog do. And the reality is that God doesn't make junk, and you're no exception. Number 2, you need to shift your focus from yourself and add value and go solve somebody's problem. And if you can do that, and then we get back to the feeling of how does it feel? Tell me about one of the people that you've loved and served. How scared were they on the call? Remember that person. Who was the person who walked them through their fear? Who was the person? And then the people kind of get back to it. And then I get them connected back to their goals and their outcomes and their purpose. And when I can connect somebody on their purpose about, hey, you can go ahead. And again, this is simply a speed bump. And I give them a new context for what they're facing. What does God want you to see in this moment? What do you need to learn from this right now? Because if you don't learn the lesson, you're going to keep cycling around until hand. And by shifting their focus from woe is me, because scarcity and woe is me energy and frequency is a repelling frequency. People don't want to associate with it. You won't sell in that space. So I got to break that pattern, reconnect them to purpose and their higher self, and then we get back to the action plan. And that's pretty much the process.
So based on what you know, I typically ask my guests, at least the ones that I remember, but I'll ask you, how do you define authenticity now in terms of what you've experienced in your life? What rings authentic to you?
I would say fully loving and embracing, starting with who you are. For example, I'm pretty high strung. I can't tell you how many times in my life people would say, oh, you need to tone it down. And so if I try and tone it down, like, for example, if I want to do Wayne Dyer, okay, Wayne was an amazing guy. He put me to sleep, but I didn't get it at the time. Now that since he's passed, rest in peace. But if I wanted to sell like Wayne Dyer because Wayne was the top salesman in my area, I would come across as inauthentic. It just doesn't fit.
Yep.
And the same thing for somebody else who wants to try and sell like Tony Robbins. And they're going up and they're coming up with all this energy and, they think that's what it takes. No. First thing you have to do is figure out you. Okay. And you embrace it. You love it. You love your quirks, and there was a story that I had about how to love your spots. And that real quickly, it was about a leopard, and it was a leopard in Africa playing with its little sibling, and their parents were in the bushes, and the family was mauled by a pride of lions. And there was one leopard that was left, and he hid in the cave, and he cried and he cried. And then after a few days, he got hungry, and so he went out and he started to look, and he climbed up the tree and sobbed. And then the giraffes came, and they had spots, and they said, "Well, what are you crying for? You got the best leaves in the whole savannah right here. Eat the leaves." And he ate the leaves, and it tasted like crap. And they laughed at him. So then he ran down and he ran out into the middle of the savannah, and he ran out in the savannah, and he saw some cheetahs. And they were little cheetahs, and they had spots, and they go, "Hey, if you're hungry, come with us. We're going on a hunt." And they chased down a gazelle, and they were all there. And when he finally caught up to him, they said, "Hey, you didn't help. You can't do it because you're not as fast as we are. You didn't earn it. So get out of here." So then he saw the lions, and he went with the lions, but they made fun of him because they outgrew their spots. And in that moment, though, when he finally got sick and tired of trying to be a giraffe, trying to be a cheetah, trying to be a lion, he realized that his spots, his imperfections were his perfections. And he realized he could hunt at night, and he didn't need a pride. He didn't need to be as fast as a cheetah, and he didn't need to like leaves. And he was able to make his own kill, take it to the top of the tree. And in the moment he embraced his spots was the moment he became perfection. Humans need to remember the same thing. If a dung beetle can find bliss on a piece of rhino dung, and a hippo can be happy in the mud, unapologetically about it, even the Nile crocodile won't mess with them, then why are we any different? We're the only species on the planet who brings shame to ourselves because I'm not like somebody else. So authenticity to me is when you embrace who you are. I'm all 5'7". I'm 180 pounds now because I got into weight training. 107 pounds. I'm 5'7". I'm not Tony Robbins. I'm not Grant Cardone. I am Marc Von Musser. And when I can move into that, I'm no better than anybody, but I'm nobody's bitch either. I'm going to be, that's the sort of thing that when I can do that, if I can't find love for myself, I can't find love in another person, because the lenses I would look through is self-loathing. If all I have is self-loathing or I'm not enough, then I only see your faults too. And so part of the process was truly falling in love with myself, not from ego, but because God doesn't make junk, and he didn't start with me. And when I finally got into that and I stopped apologizing for what I wasn't and embracing what I was, I was able to see greatness in other people as well. And that's now what I help them activate.
And that's it. And hence the ready to find your greatness. Marc, I will have your website, marcvonmusser.com, as ways to get to you. Is that the best way for my audience to reach you? It's a good
Absolutely.
one.
Also on Facebook. On Facebook, find me, and the other one too, because I'm here. I want to activate and liberate and help change the face of enrolling in sales. I believe that we're off track as an industry. I believe that there are too many people at the top who are spewing stuff that doesn't work and making people that are good, heart-driven people feel like they're losing. And they're only losing because a heart-driven person needs a heart-driven approach. And if people are trying to manipulate and pressure people to get selling, no wonder you don't like it. You shouldn't like it. That is abhorrent behavior. And so we need to shift the industry. But yeah, join me at marcvonmusser.com. Find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or anywhere. It's going to, in the next 3 to 5 years, John, mark my words, you're going to see a complete transformation of the industry, and it must happen because humanity is evolving. Humanity demands and expects more. And if we are not in love and service at the highest level, this industry's done. So it's going to change.
I'm so excited because I believe that that's so doable. So I love the urgency in that timeline. Marc, thank you so much for showing up for me and showing up for us. That sense of bringing love and service to my platform. I'm honored, man. I'm very grateful to you. And I thank you again for showing up for me and for this community. It matters. Thanks so much, man.
Thank you, John. Also, I want to give you a big shout out. Thank you for doing this, because again, when I was selling and I didn't have anybody, I only had one person to help keep me alive. Anybody listening to this and doing it, don't give up. You're 1 or 2 distinctions away from an entirely new career and an entirely new level of success and fulfillment. So don't quit, but also be honest. Look in the mirror and realize if your way's not working, you need a new approach. Maybe you're off track. It doesn't make you a loser. It doesn't mean you're not going to win. It means that you're going down the wrong track. So let's clean that up. But God doesn't make junk, and he didn't start with you as well. You're a couple of distinctions away for an entirely new life.
This is so exciting. Listen, folks, pay attention. This is more than just buzzwords. Marc, thanks again for being here for me. It means
my pleasure. Thank you so much.
100%. And folks, you've just heard another episode of Your Message Received. Keep liking, watching, sharing. Give some more of your heart. Somebody needs it. And we'll keep driving content through your front door. John Duffin here, Duffin Media. Have a great day all, and we will talk soon. Bye.
And now, making its way across the finish line, Your Message Received has been a production of Duffin Media.